And so you may have some dark times. I've had a few times where I've gone, well, this isn't really good. I want to see my kids, I want to, and they're not living with me right now. So I don't have that luxury. So I miss that physical touch and contact, and laugh and those sorts of things. So you either, and what awareness does in many ways is linked to this too. And we'll come back to talking about Qigong meditation in a way and awareness. But awareness is linked to this, is that once we find ourselves spiraling downward, if we're not aware we're doing it, we're just spiraling downward because we're in our thoughts, we're in our worries, and when we're thinking negatively about situations, that also immediately affects the heart. It affects our emotions. The link to thought brings on emotions, and the emotions trigger other thoughts, and so you have this snowball of effect in the system. So somehow having the wherewithal to go to find yourself in that state, which is a state of awareness where you actually go, oh, I'm not doing so well. I'm finding that my shoulders are drooping, or I'm feeling a bit sad, right? And I think what's important, and I've learnt this for me, and I'll speak for me. I don't want to speak for you in that sense. Cat hair flying through the air. What's important for me in that is to recognize that that's occurring. And the moment I recognize it's occurring is the beginning of the end of that negative feeling. In other words, it's the chance, if you like, the potential at that very moment that I bring awareness, oh, I'm actually feeling a bit off. I'm not feeling so positive right now. That is the chance, the potential for the whole thing to dissipate, to vaporize. Now, if I bring action towards that mentally, and I want to talk about this briefly, if I go justify it, for example, and these are great things that Jiddu Krishnamurti talked about. He talked about justification and condemnation. If I justify it by saying, well, everyone else is miserable right now, it's okay, you just, it's normal. Which is, this is what people do, right? And I've done in the past too. If I justify it or condemn it by going, oh, why are you being negative? You shouldn't be negative. There's a lot of people worse off than you, and they're all getting on with it. Both of those, justification or condemnation, dissipate the energy, the potential energy for the whole thing to go away without leaving a mark. Because both of them are moving away from it and endeavoring to impose upon it some other energy. So what I've learned through Qigong and through people like Jiddu Krishnamurti, and they're both linked in many ways about being very present, being mindful, is that the moment I'm aware that I'm sliding into that, the moment that I'm aware that I'm dipping in my energy, that I'm not feeling so positive, I'm not feeling so up, is the potential right there for the whole thing to vaporize. If I do nothing. Now, this might seem a strange thing to say because I'm sure that all the psychologists and everybody else and therapists go, what are you talking about? You've got to do something. And I say no. For me, I say no. I don't want to do anything. Because the doing is what? Where's it coming from? It's coming from some past action or knowledge or skill that I want to impose upon this sense of who I am. No. But doing nothing is the action, because I'm allowing through that nothingness this state of complete attention and being, which means I'm linking into, and I want you to try and stay with this, right? I'm not saying you're stupid, I just say stay with this. The moment I'm doing nothing and I'm awake, aware, very present, at that moment, I'm linked into the timeless, ever-changing now, which is a constant movement that has no beginning and no end, it seems, but it's alive and living. It's the only state of living is to be present in the now. You can't say I have lived or I will live tomorrow. We do say that, but that's not living. One hasn't happened and the other's dead in the past. So living is actually the only state where you can be living is to be present, awake in the now. So the moment I do that, the moment I stop and bring awareness to the fact and bring consciousness to the fact, you could say I have an insight into it, I have awareness, I wake up, whatever terms you want to use, to the fact that I'm not feeling so good, that I'm feeling a little off, that I'm feeling a little bit lonely or a little bit sad or a little bit, oh, I want to see somebody and I'm feeling so good, which is a very natural response. It bubbles up in your system because you would like some human contact, right? Now, the fact that I can't solve that physically, actually, by having human contact, is obviously the energy and the potential to drive you further down the hole, to drive you further downward, because you go, there's no solution, I can't get it, I really want it. So the desire for it drives you further into desperation. So the moment I'm really awake to it and go, this is how I'm feeling, and stop and just give consciousness to it, give awareness to it, and don't make any movement whatsoever. I don't mean don't make any physical movement. I mean, there's no movement psychologically to impose upon it. I find then it disappears. It goes away because I'm linked into something eternal, something infinite. I don't want to give it a name. I link into the living, dynamic, eternal now. And in that, all healing takes place. That's a big statement. But this is very much about what Dr. Shu and other people have talked about with nothingness is the best medicine, is that when you give over to letting the system right itself, it will do it, given that it has enough life force energy left to do it. But right in that, we're not interfering. The me with all its ideas, and the me is the past with all of my culture, with all of my memory, all of my experience, all of my knowledge, all of my credentials, all of my hopes and fears and sadness and joys, is not trying to fix it. That dead past, no matter how big that knowledge and experience is, it's still a dead thing. It's the past. And it's constantly being added to by every new experience. So it's not infinite. But the living now is. It's a dynamic living thing. And when you bring consciousness to it and awareness and find that you are awake to that present, you are linked into that. You snap into it. You plug straight into this infinite source. Now, to say what that infinite source is conjecture, is hearsay, is nonsense. We don't want to go, that's God, that's this, that's no. You can do that if you like, but I assure you, you're just waffling off into thinking again, and you're not being present. The moment you bring no activity of thought to it whatsoever and catch yourself diving off into wanting to explain it and wanting to pigeonhole it and wanting to justify it and wanting to condemn it and wanting to go, oh yeah, this is good now being in a state of awareness, or this, that, is the time that you're also not aware anymore. So you catch yourself starting to do that. And this is how we, I guess, progress into having a state of awareness that doesn't involve you thinking, where you start catching yourself wanting to analyze. And when you stop analyzing and you find yourself doing it, which bring awareness to analyzing, suddenly you're quiet again, then you start to think and you're aware that you're thinking, and then suddenly you're quiet again. Over time, you have more ability, if I can use that term, to have this quietness, this awareness, this stillness in being sustained for a much longer period of time before you have to go about everyday activities. So it can be something that you can actually learn to be able to do, where you can sit and be in a state of awareness, which is really the state of activity. It's stillness, but you are now you're not dead, you're not in a state of being dumb, or you're not just chewing cud like a cow. You're in a state of complete attentiveness. Every sense of your being is alive. You're listening, you're smelling, you know. Right now it's raining and I'm talking. If I stop, there's no activity of thought while I'm listening to the rain. That's what I'm talking about. So Qigong implies that. And meditation in Qigong is about nothingness, doing nothing. Doing nothing is doing something. I think to get your head around that, right, is important. That the doing of nothing, which means I'm not having to analyze or solve problems mentally, I'm not having to think about this, I'm not having to swing a shovel, whatever. There's a different doing. The nothingness, which is not sitting around like chewing a cud like a cow, is a state of complete awareness, complete conjunction with the now, this dynamic, living, eternal thing. And in that, all healing takes place. Very interesting proposition, right? But this is where you want to be in doing Qigong practice, is that if you're moving gently in Qigong, or you're rising energy up or bringing it down, you want to feel that. Every little movement, everything you do, you want to come up and feel that rise, and then press down and feel that flow through you, or that heaviness against your hands as you come down. And when you move outward, you want to feel something press against the hands, or when you go up to the sky and come down, you want to feel something that you're pulling gently, ever so gently, and how do you say, sweetly through your whole being. And you're awake to all of those little bits. They're not in segments. It's one continuous flow of awareness. So what we want to do is translate that into bringing that consciousness, bringing that awareness to any time you're feeling off. Have a go. Enough raving for me today. hopefully you can get through this lockdown if I'm speaking to you presently and you actually get to watch this, and you can find some benefit in this. Love and hugs. Cheers for now. Bye.